from Florida's Gulf Coast, where sun-kissed waves inspire us. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll, where we navigate the intersection of talent optimization and business strategy with wit, wisdom, and a dash of sibling rivalry. I'm your co-host, Mary Stockwell, joined by my brother, a Hemingway lookalike, and a seasoned business and mental fitness coach, and a talent optimization and workforce strategist, Tim Stockwell. Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good, Mayor. How about you this morning?
Oh, wow. It's just a beautiful day here in Tampa Bay. It's a little chillier, so feeling quite invigorated.
So chilly, by chilly, you mean?
Well, it's about 68.
Oh my gosh, it is chilly for this time.
That's freezing.
Yeah, very cold.
Freezing. That's funny.
Yeah, that's coming from two Key West kind of guys. So,
Yeah, that's funny. So how are you, Tim?
I'm doing just great, Mayor. This is going to be a beautiful day.
It is. We're having fun.
Yeah.
Today's going to be some really great episodes. But before we get started with AJ, today in our Roots Run Deep segment, we're celebrating our sister Luann's birthday. This week, she turned 60. Can you even believe it?
I didn't think we were going to say her age.
Okay, but I let the cat out of the bag.
You did, yeah.
I didn't say that she was our youngest sister.
That's true. That's true. Well, now you have. So, yeah. Well, happy birthday, Lou.
Happy birthday, Lou. I have such fun memories of our childhood, Tim. Will
Yeah.
you share one that still makes you laugh today?
And it's one that I think we talk about all the time. I'm a bit older than Lou, but I remember almost every night it seemed like at dinner we would eat fairly late in our house, and most frequently it was either spaghetti or cereal or something. But I remember Lou almost every night she would start getting very tired. She was quite young then in her high chair. And her head would start weaving and then start bopping up and down, and we would just start laughing because we knew what was going to happen. And then just pretty soon it was boom, right in her plate of food. And then of course Dad would say, "Mare, clean her up, get her to bed." That was
Well, I think you would say that to Jer, actually.
to Jer, that's right, not to you.
Not me. I don't know that he would trust me taking care of somebody at that age.
No, that's funny though. That does bring back a lot, and it's hard to believe it was that one.
One of my, I think, fun memories is her laugh. She has, and still to this day, such an infectious, big belly deep laugh that makes other people laugh quickly.
Yeah. And she was a beautiful young girl. She reminded me, and people always said she looked like Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
She had those eyes and the same hair and everything. So yeah, well, happy birthday, Lou. We're glad to be able to celebrate it with you.
Happy birthday, Lou. Love ya.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good, AJ.
wow. Coming from AJ. How exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm really excited about this episode, and I've been looking forward to this discussion for quite a while now.
Yep. And so get ready for some straight talking, insightful, maybe even a little bit hilarious talent advice. Today, we're joined by AJ Vollmoeller, founder of Future Force and author of a great book, a must read, How to Not Get Hired. He's a seasoned reality TV personality. AJ brings a unique perspective to the world of recruiting and career coaching, and we've had a great time with him. So buckle up as we dive into talent optimization strategies, the current job market, and maybe even hear a few behind the scenes reality TV stories that'll help you land your dream job. AJ, welcome to the podcast. And how are you today?
Hello, I'm doing good. Just living life down here in beautiful Key West, right alongside you, Tim. You know how nice it is down here.
Yeah.
Mary, you're still in the state of Florida, so you're enjoying the warm weather.
A little chilly today.
Yeah. A lot of the listeners are going to not like that comment.
Yeah, they're not going to like
Northeasterners.
Yeah.
That's all right. They'll laugh at me because I am a wimp.
Yeah.
We do get a lot of comments about, gee, it must be tough living in Tampa and Key West, but as you know, it is a challenge.
It is, but we moved here for the weather, so when the weather's not that nice, I'm upset about it.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah, we do our best.
Great. Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and dive in. You ready, AJ?
I'm ready.
All righty. So, you bring up some interesting things about poaching versus traditional recruiting. You emphasized finding the best talent, even those currently employed. What's the key to attracting and converting those top performers?
Uh, because I don't post job descriptions, I don't entertain inbound candidates. I go out and I poach normally from my clients' direct competitors or close enough. The key is for me is hooking them with your in-mail message on LinkedIn or however you're reaching out to them. For me, the biggest thing is the subject line. They're getting tons of messages per day or per week, or depending, if you're in tech, they're getting a little bit heavier. They're getting tons of recruiters reaching out. In sales and other industries, they're still getting a good amount per week. And most recruiters nowadays are a dime a dozen. Hi, I have this job for you. It seems like a good fit. Are you interested? Let me know. No personalization of the email. It's copied and pasted and blasted out to 100 plus candidates at one time. And there's nothing personal about it. So I consistently receive replies back, even from candidates that are not interested or don't want to move careers or switch their jobs, thanking me for the in-depth message I sent them, for looking into their background, for really making them want to even read the message, even though they're not interested. So for me, the major thing is that initial hook to make them even open the message.
Well, that's awesome. Have any examples you want to share?
So my subject line is something I keep near and dear to the heart. I've been using the same subject line for the most part, 90% of the times, since probably 2017, and it works, and I'm not giving it out.
I don't
Um,
blame
it,
you.
there's a couple different ways that it works because there's a word in it that could be spelled multiple ways, and a lot of people spell it the wrong way. So some people will reply back trying to correct me. But I don't, as long as you reply back, now I got you. If you're trying to correct me, I'll just let it slide and we can move on past that.
Is that a little trick that you've learned along the way, or it's
I've
just,
learned it because I had to look it up to how to spell it correctly.
I
And
gotcha.
it wasn't how I thought it was spelled. So I realized I corrected myself, and now sending it out, it grabs other people's attention because they're questioning it. And it's worked for a long time. I stumbled upon it, and I'm just going to use it for the rest of my career.
Well, it is a unique methodology, so,
Yep.
and it works, right?
And
So
I always give a compliment first in the opening of the email. Because I am poaching them and these people are gainfully employed, I understand that I have to pitch them and hook them first. A simple, hey, I have a job that fits for you, if they're not looking, is not enticing. So I make sure that I compliment them. I let them know that I looked into their backgrounds and what from their background crosses over.
I love
Well,
that.
it is personal, yeah.
It is
Yeah.
personal, but it's still a copied and pasted message that I blast out to everybody, but it doesn't feel like that.
No, that's awesome. So let's move to a reality checks on resumes. On reality TV, people craft a certain persona. Do you ever see candidates trying too hard to sell themselves on their resumes? And how do you coach them through that?
All the time. The big buzzword with resumes and interviewing and just the job market nowadays is keywords. Yes, keywords are very impactful. Keywords help your resume get recognized. Keywords help the applicant tracking system, the ATS, see your resume and market pre-qualified so it can be seen by human eyes. And the keywords, I see a lot of times people just litter them all over their resume in no strategic order. You can tell that the resume was made just to incorporate keywords. That is not acceptable. It shouldn't just be random words that are, aligned with your background all over your resume. Also, with resumes, having them written by AI, everybody thinks it's the greatest thing around. It is not. It is easily recognizable. It is seen as you are lazy, to put it bluntly, that you don't want to put the time and effort into creating your own resume. It took you 5 minutes, you push in the information, and this thing prints out. That does not look good or translate well to a potential employer. A lot of the wording is with AI is very recognizable as opposed to just a normal human writing it. So I see people all the time trying to really over exaggerate their skill sets, use AI to make it sound overly professional when you read it. And yes, there's a whole bunch of professional words, but what does it really say? You know, it kind of comes out like word vomit sometimes on paper. And there's just a lot of red flags that I would say with people trying too hard. A resume should tell the story of your background, and a resume should have personality, um, specifically your personality, so that when you tell it, you can present it in a good form.
Very conversational, in other words. Make your
Correct.
resume very conversational.
Yep. And I see a lot of people that want to add everything they possibly can into their resume. And I suggest against this because when you get into an interview, if everything you have to say is already on your resume, guess who's not leaving a lasting impact? You, because you're not telling them anything new. You're not engaging them. You're not building rapport. Everything you're saying is they've already read ahead of time because they reviewed your resume. So you're not intriguing. You're not keeping the attention. So it should be a stepping stone, and don't put all your words on your resume.
Great reality checkup for them, right? Just,
Sure. You know, AJ, do you see that some people, let's say maybe they're seasoned, let's say 50 and over, want to include like all of their experiences throughout their lifetime on their resume? How do you coach them to like bring that down to an experience list of 15, 18 years? Do you think that that's an important thing to do, or do you think it's important for them just to share it all?
It's very important for them to trim their resume down. A perfect example is I received a resume to update the resume and rewrite the resume for this gentleman. And besides being a career student, and he was already in his 70s, multiple doctorates, all psychology, worked consultant for the FBI and everything else, been taking either certifications or college classes his whole career, and hundreds of consulting engagements. I received his resume. It was 37 pages. That's a thesis, you know? I'm not going to use his name. I said, nobody's going to read this. And the reality of a resume is you really only need to have detailed content going back 10 years. Because even if at 12 years ago, 15 years ago, even at that 10-year mark, the job you were doing, even if you haven't advanced, you're still got the same title. The way you were doing it 10 years ago is vastly different from the way you do that exact job nowadays, simply because of advancements in technology. If you stop doing your job 10 years ago, you come back into the industry now, you cannot pick up right where you left off. It's going to be a whole new learning curve. So a resume really only needs to be detailed back 10 years. But if you are in a career where you've built that career over the course of more than 10 years, you can still list, your companies and the titles to show that you have that tenure in the industry, but it doesn't have to be overly detailed because, again, the details don't really matter because it's done a different way now.
Yeah, that was such valuable insights there. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
And as far as niche skill sets go, in this tight market, how do you help clients find candidates with those specialized skills, especially within the startup environments?
Most of them are having trouble finding those specialized skills, which is why they come to me. I do help train them a little bit and let them know if the job description's off a little bit, I will tailor it and let them know why. Help them because if it is a startup, eventually they may be wanting to build an internal TA department, or bring recruiting in-house to save money, but they're just not doing it right away because it's still in startup phase. So I do like to lend some knowledge to them as well. But again, they're hiring me to do a job, to recruit for them and to find them the best talent. So I try to take as much off their plate as I can at the same time. They don't want to convert interviewing into a learning experience where it's still taking up so much time because they have other C-level executive jobs to do.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, those are great. Now, and you do have a niche yourself, though, too, don't you, AJ? I think you may have mentioned it. But
I do.
yeah.
I'm still trying. It's been called a couple different names. I think I like the 90-day plus recruiter was a good one that I was called, meaning that I only work on positions that have been open for 90 days plus that are niche skill set that are a combination skill set. A lot of times in tech, you're seeing different stacks wanting to be combined together, a lot of different technologies. And um, most of my clients come to me when they have that need that either their internal TA has not been able to fill or the external agencies haven't really worked on it too much because it's not the low hanging fruit. So I come in and I don't have to compete with the other agencies because they've all given up on it, and I'm allowed to do my thing. And the first thing I ask them is, "Who is your direct competitor?"
Yeah. And they like that kind of conversation flow.
They do. I've noticed. Excuse me. I've noticed it's, how can I put this PC? There's a clear line between managers' thoughts and how long they've been in their position or in their career, we'll say. Managers that have reached the managerial level earlier on in their career, we'll call them younger managers, newer age managers. They're not as receptive to me coming flat out and saying, "Hey, I'm going to poach someone from your direct competitor." They're like, "Whoa, we don't want that fire. We don't want that smoke. We don't want to cause a riff." And it's really not a riff. I mean, industries are ancestral. That's what happens. Talent goes everywhere. So, but if I position it like that, a lot of them see it as a turnoff. They say, "Oh no, we don't want to poach. We don't want to." It has a bad connotation to some people. Now, managers that have been in their position for a little bit longer in their career for a couple decades, they're all about it. They're a lot more receptive to it. They're like, "Absolutely, go steal that person for me." And I think it's just, business has changed a lot over the years. It's still very competitive, but it's very competitive in a different way. Do you
Yeah,
see that a lot, Tim?
oh yeah, yeah. And I think that leads into kind of a question I had in terms of, because you have that niche spot and you go after those folks 90 days. There's whole industry, some of the issues in the industry right now in terms of that ghosting process. Either the potential employee ghosts you and the company, or the company ghosts you and the potential employee, because of a whole things. How do you get around that, and how do you help folks navigate the lack of sort of expedient communication, either from the potential, the candidate, and the company?
So it was very different when I was working for a staffing agency as it is opposed to running my own agency because I do things differently. For me, I only work with small, medium-sized businesses or large companies where I have a direct contact inside that department to the hiring manager directly, where I don't have to go through HR or internal talent acquisition reps and whatever the case may be. So I'm proud to say I don't experience ghosting
Mhm.
a lot at all. I can't even name a recent time that I have. A lot of it has to do with going through and checking when I'm doing my pre-qualifying interview with the candidate.
Mhm.
Trial closed 3 times. If this position's offered to you, is there anything stopping you from accepting it? Would you need a 2-week notice, or do you need 3 weeks or more? Because I'm starting to notice a lot of people are wanting 3 weeks because they have
Yeah.
projects they're working on.
Uh,
So I don't want to say 3 weeks is starting to become the norm, but it is somewhat acceptable because companies understand if they're stealing a candidate
yeah.
or an employee from another company, they have to let them finish up their projects. They're not just going
Yeah,
to.
everybody wants to leave on good terms. If they're going to leave, they're
So
going to leave on good terms.
for me, follow up is big. I have no problem texting a manager. I have no problem texting a candidate. I make sure that with the candidates, I'm in constant contact until their interview. I provide what I call a white glove type of experience for the candidates. I coach them through everything. I prep them before every interview. I have them call me after the interviews to see how it went, to get their feedback on it, which is also another checkpoint. It keeps them engaged. The managers, I always send an email a couple hours after the interview to ask them how it went, so I know what they're feeling and see if they want the next steps. So it's just follow up and constant contact in between the two sides, and I'm lucky I don't get the ghosting a lot.
Yeah, that is a good thing, because I know as we know, it's in the industry itself. It's
Yep.
communication flow has slowed down quite a bit. So when you're doing this interview process and you're trying to work between the company and the potential candidate, How do you deal with the salary issues, the transparency in terms of, does the candidate tell you what their expectations are? Do you pass that on to the company? How's that
Um,
whole negotiation process taking place now?
so typically companies will give me a range. Sometimes they'll say, well, we want somebody and the range is really large. We're looking for somebody that has the skill sets, whether it be entry level of these skill sets or heavy. So you'll have a 50 or even $80,000 range because they're looking for somebody that can go. And I've learned in my career that even though it shouldn't be, money is the major factor for people transitioning jobs. You get the one-offs where I can't stand my manager or the company's horrible, but for the most part, money is the driving factor. And I'm always upfront with my candidates. That's the first conversation I have with them when we hop on the phone. I said, listen, I just want to make sure that the compensation aligns because if not, I'm wasting your time and you're wasting my time.
Yeah.
So I go over it right away. I always give them a range, not a hard number. I know it's hard for me to keep up of what states you're allowed to ask what their compensation is and what states you're not allowed to ask them. So rather than possibly digging myself a hole, I always tell everybody this is the range we're in. Are you okay with that? And what is your target? And that opens up a discussion. Most people are not reluctant to talk about salary.
Sure.
So, and if it's a little bit too low, they're not reluctant to say absolutely not.
Yeah.
So it's got to be open and transparent. You just build the trust right away.
How often do you find when you get the range from your client that from your experience that range is probably on the low end, given the market dynamics right now? Do you have a chance to open up that conversation, or are they fairly set?
More times than not, it happens where the salaries are a little bit low.
Yeah.
I do attribute it. I see it more often now than pre-pandemic, and the market salaries have changed. Everything's went up a little bit from this regular standard entry level positions to minimum wage to high level positions. And a lot of companies, even though their HR department may know, the hiring manager or whoever they didn't absorb it yet. So they're not understanding that this was the old salary range.
Yeah.
So I tell them, but I don't want to be put off too soon or put them off too soon. So I will find some candidates, and typically the candidates that I find that are good are on the high end of that range, or at the very high end, or slightly over it. And if it's depending on the level of the position, but if it's 5 or 10 grand over, I don't mind sending that to a candidate. To a client. I'm not going to send them a candidate that's $50,000 over because that's really pushing the budget.
Yeah.
But if I send them 3 candidates and all 3 of them are on the top of that range and they don't like any of them, the writing's on the wall that now they need to up their range because they're looking for more. So there's ways to let them know without letting them know.
Yeah. No, good points, because I think you see that a lot in the industry right now. What's going on?
Yeah, because managers, a lot of people are not paying close attention to salaries and market rates, when they're going up. I don't want to say when they're going down because they don't go down, but we just went through where everybody's getting, you pretty much tack on $5,000 to $10,000 more. The higher the salary, the little bit more that range goes up, 10 to 15. So it's still taken a little while for people to understand the inflation and actually realize they have to pay for it to get the right talent they want.
Yeah. Well, when you bring them high quality talent, they're going to recognize it.
Correct. And that's what you just have to do. Bring them the high quality talent at that range or what they're looking for. Because the money is important to the client. It's more important to the candidate.
Absolutely.
But the client always has flexibility.
Yeah.
There's always a little extra room in the budget. So for the right person, I always say I'll just send them over if they're just a touch out of the range.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. I agree. Yeah.
Nothing good ever came cheap,
That's true.
And people know their market value now. They absolutely do. They've been paying attention to it, and people are now, I know my worth. And that's not something they used to say a lot.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We see that all the time. And I think that's exciting, right? That people are that aware of what's going on in the market that they know their worth.
Yeah. And I attribute it a lot to websites like Glassdoor. I'm not particularly a fan of Glassdoor. Uh, I've had to battle against it in one of my previous engagements because they had bad Glassdoor reviews. But as for salary content, Glassdoor is spot on.
Pretty good.
The reviews, I will always say, and I know I'm sidebarring here about Glassdoor, but when people are upset with their job, they want to complain to everybody. They want to warn everybody to not go there. They want to voice their opinion. So they run to a website that's wildly popular that they can just spew everything out and warn everybody, and they feel better. But when they love their job, when they're doing great, they go out and get drinks with friends and talk at a small table. They don't run to a website to tell
Yeah.
everybody how great it is. So it is very biased. It is very heavy on the negative side for the reviews. But for the salary aspects of it, I do believe that it's pretty good.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
agree with you.
Yeah.
We've helped clients actually improve their Glassdoor scores, right? Because of the negative comments and, what can you do differently? So I appreciate that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that word track was well rehearsed because I had to use it a lot before I started my own company and my last engagement. I had to use it a lot. They were a startup. They had bad Glassdoor reviews, and I had to overcome it.
Yeah.
Well, AJ, we'll shift gears a little bit here because I want to give you time to talk a little bit about some additional things that you've done. So your book, How to Not Get Hired, which I think is brilliantly done, it's full of these kind of cringeworthy interviews, stories. Have you got one or two that you could share that would be kind of funny for folks that are listening?
What's the age range of the people that are listening? Is it NC-17? No, I'm kidding.
So what are maybe some of the mistakes people are making?
Some of the mistakes that I see a lot on resumes, and a resume is a direct reflection of who you are.
Yeah.
A lot of people I hear all the time say, oh, well, I can get the job. Once they talk to me, they're going to love me. They see that I have the credentials. That's great. But without a good resume, they're never going to talk to you. Like there's a step before talking to them.
Yeah.
When a resume is just thrown together, it appears that way. It's kind of like when you eat food that was homemade, but there was no love put into it. You can taste the lack of love. Same thing with the resume. You can see the lack of effort. And a lot of times people will add their new jobs, but never end their last job. So now I received a resume recently, 3 positions, long-term positions the gentleman had, and they were all to present.
Yeah.
2018 to present, 2014 to present. And now I'm looking at, and I know the situation. I know he just never closed out the other jobs, but one, it's a lack of attention to detail. So I'd imagine the same in the workplace. 2, how are they going to manage another job? They're already overloaded with
They're already
work, So either way, it's the lack of attention to detail, or if it's true, you're still not getting the job either way because both of them look bad. So I've seen that a few times. What else have I seen?
Have you seen interview stories about some of these interviews that have really gone wrong?
Yes.
That people just said, really
saying
wrong
stuff.
things.
I know when video interviewing was still relatively new. I don't want to call it new, but not the craze, not as forward as it is now. I would always coach people on going through their initial Zoom interview, or back then it was Skype. I think it was a Skype interview. I say back then, it was 3 years ago, but I always tell them to make sure you look at your background, because when you're looking at yourself and the reflection or the video of yourself, you're looking at yourself, you're looking at the other person, you're not checking out your own background. And I had a candidate, now granted it was in California, so it's a little bit more acceptable, but still not acceptable, who did an interview, had a beautiful background. They had a home-based office, nice bookshelf in the background, and right in clear sight in the background was a nice bong sitting right on the bookshelf, in the middle of their interview. And the client called me up afterwards. He's like, I don't know how to approach this.
Yeah.
And this is the relationship that I tend to have with my clients. So we can kind of talk a little freely. And so, listen, I like the candidate, but there was a bong in their background. Like, I don't know how to, ultimately they did not get the job. It was, they just, the company felt that it was a little bit too much for what they were looking for.
Yeah.
Now it could have went a different way with a different company or a different manager. You have no idea. But one thing I always say is just make sure you look into your own background, and just see what's back there. Because the other people, they catch what's behind you. They don't look at you the
They
whole
look at
time.
everything.
Look around. Yeah. Like I'm looking at a beautiful sunset in your
That's
background,
right.
Well, I think AJ, that's an interesting thing, because I think that's why virtual backgrounds popped up.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
A virtual background definitely would have saved, we called him
Yeah.
Bookshelf Bong Billy, is the title of his chapter in the book.
I like that.
And then another good one, and I liked this book to also be helpful. I'm a type of person that I learn what to do by, unfortunately, figuring out what not to do, firsthand experience or seeing other people do it wrong. So then I know how to do it. So that's kind of what this book does. It's giving you insight into what not to do, which hopefully you can figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And it was a high professional medical or surgical sales device job. So these people are going into the operating room, communicating with surgeons and surgical nurses and everything on a daily basis. So very, tight-lipped, nice professional position.
Yeah.
And gentleman, it was New York City, and the gentleman was spot on. I mean, every nice boss suit the whole time, every interview he was in, always buttoned up to the nines. And he gets to the CEO interview, final interview, and it was a Zoom interview or a video interview. And he had his shirt, no jacket, no suit jacket, and his shirt was unbuttoned, like 4 buttons, and he had an extremely hairy chest. So we call him Chest Muff Michael. And this is how he decided to do his CEO interview. After every one, he was so polished. So he goes into this interview, and I'm friends with the CEO or acquaintances enough. And the CEO calls me right after. He's like, AJ, I have to tell you this story. I'm like, oh no, what? He goes, Michael? I said, yeah. And he proceeds to tell me, he goes, I could not pay attention to a word that he said because his chest was so hairy, it was protruding out. And it wasn't just like one button down like you'd see on The Sopranos. It was like 3 or 4 buttons and it was just protruding out. So always dress to the nines. It doesn't matter if you're in the final interview and you think you've got the job locked in, always dress to the nines.
Yeah. It's great advice. Great advice. Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, those are really funny. I want to read the book. That's just
yeah. I'll drop one off to you. The book has my whole career, especially before when I first started recruiting. I started seeing all these funny resumes, and I always started collecting them. Never knew what I was doing with them. No goal. Just I had a manila folder, funny resumes. And I'd throw them in there and I'd show them to friends and they'd all laugh, whether they're in hiring manager positions or what it is, they get a kick out of it. And it came to the point where they were asking, AJ, you got any more of these funny resumes to show me? I love seeing them. And I'm like, light bulb, put it into a book.
Put it in a book.
So it's funny resumes that I've seen throughout my career. It's hilarious interviewing stories. There's a lot of detailed animations in it that I had an animator come in and put some drawings in it. So yeah, it's a good funny book.
Tears to your eyes, funny stuff. Sorry. All right, very cool, Mayor.
Thanks for joining us on Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll today, AJ. We appreciate expert insights and those entertaining reality TV parallels. We look forward to our next episode, where you'll be back for an encore episode, career focus with a reality TV flavor.
So we'll get into it on the next one.
Yeah,
we sure will. Listeners, be sure to check out AJ's book, How to Not Get Hired, and visit Future Force for all your unique recruiting and career coaching needs. Don't forget to share your best or worst job search stories with us on social media. Tag us on LinkedIn at Meritas Advisory Group.
and when you do send us in some of those funny stories or are some of the things you never know might show up in How Not to Get Hired too.
Yes.
When AJ redoes this, right?
I've been thinking about it because I've been collecting. I don't have enough for
Yeah.
another one, but I've been collecting.
Well, we'll see if some of our listeners can contribute some funny stories.
I would love that.
So that's great. So a wonderful discussion, AJ. I know we're going to revisit this pretty soon for our second episode. So, folks, when you're ready to solve your toughest people challenges and achieve strategic business growth, you need to just tap into our expertise in talent optimization, leadership development, mental fitness coaching, very important. And for actionable insights, subscribe to and like our Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen. Contact us to transform your talent and achieve lasting results. You can always reach Mayor at 727-260-2085. I'm at 816-522-4777, or pretty simple, just through LinkedIn. Until next time, AJ, we're going to see you in a little while, in a couple of days. This is Tim with my sister, Mary Stockwell, and our fantastic guest, AJ Vollmoeller.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Great talking to you, Tim and Mary.
You bet.
See you on the beach.
All
That's a wrap.
Thanks, AJ.
right. Man, that went so quick.